Welcome back to another edition of the New Mexican Sports Podcast. I'm your sports editor, Will Weber, as always joined by James Barron, and behind the scenes, our producer, show killer, Matt Dulside. Today, we're going to have a guest, Paul Weir, the new president of St. Mike's, will join us in just a minute. But we're going to get some business out of the way first, James. First of all, look, we're recording this on August 11th. I survived jury duty this morning. I got dismissed from jury duty first thing, so I'm able to do the podcast. But tomorrow morning, August 12th, for 7 seconds, we're supposed to lose gravity, if you believe all the tinfoil hatters. So make sure you're not at football practice at 7:30, or there's no telling how high you're going to go. I'm just saying that's the deal.
I got nothing on that.
Nothing.
Man. That's like how do you respond to that kind of nonsense, man? It's like I almost just want to sit here and just be like.
There you go. And also the eclipse is tomorrow too, so there's that.
Okay, that's the bigger thing.
Yeah. This week we started our football tour, the high school football tour, which we do every year. We take a look at all the area high school football teams. We started yesterday with Taos. I know you got to drive up through Taos, but to get there, you had to go through all the schmutz to get there.
Yeah, it does not look pretty, and it doesn't appear like this is going to change anytime soon. As a matter of fact, when I went to Taos, I talked to their head coach, Johnny Ogeen, and he mentioned that when they woke up in the morning, they couldn't even see the mountains, and they're far closer to the mountains than even like State Capitol is or Santa Fe High is, compared to that. It was very smoky up there. They were worried that they weren't going to be able to practice outdoors. And it's kind of strange, coming back from Taos, you could literally smell the fire, the smoke from the fire coming through the canyon there, coming down off the off the mesa from where Taos is and everything. And it's kind of bizarre. I got a text this morning from Pewaukee coach Zeke Villegas, and he was talking about the air quality over there at Pewaukee, which is probably, I think they're the closest to the fire out of all the schools there with Espanola and Los Alamos. And he said the air quality index was about 346. And then it got up to about 500, over 500. And I'm like, wow, are you sure you're not in the fire at that point? Because, over 300 is bad. 500, I can't imagine what that's like. And you can even see it in Santa Fe, even in the time that I spent in Santa Fe yesterday afternoon, you could just see that haziness and that smoke, just resting upon the mountainside and everything. And, it's going to be a problem probably for at least the next couple of days, probably for the entire week, depending on how soon they can contain this fire, at least get it under control. And normally this is monsoon season, so you would think that there'd be this chance that you get some rain to kind of help, and it really hasn't. They get a little bit here and there, but not enough really to for a major or a significant impact on the fire.
Yeah, it's been a bad summer. Look, we typically have a pretty bad fire season. Of course, we've seen this a lot. We saw it in spring one year right before the state baseball tournament started. When Robertson was the number 1 seed, and
that's right,
they couldn't practice for a good week or two. They had no time to prepare because they evacuated Las Vegas for that fire. And of course, we're old enough to remember the Cerro Grande fire when it came through Los Alamos. So
yeah,
it
around the same time too.
Yeah, it's been a bad stretch, and yeah, you're right. The air quality, it's one thing to have the heat index climbing the way it is, but you combine that with the air quality, and look, anytime the wind shifts, it's either going to blow over Santa Fe or going to go straight towards Taos. So yeah. And there's no telling how long this could go on. It could go on for weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's even impacting Pecos. It's weird. Like the last couple of days, I'm learning a little bit about the air quality index, and what I know about it is that anything over 100 is considered unhealthy, and then it just gets progressively worse. And technically, Pewaukee this morning was in what they call the maroon level, which means they're it's extremely dangerous, almost hazardous, as opposed to unhealthy. So for everybody out there, you kind of hope that things get a little bit better. It hasn't impacted practices yet, but there's a good chance that we might start seeing it, especially today. I think Pewaukee could be the first to pull their kids out from outside and just bring them indoors just to be safer, compared to having to breathe in all of that smoke. And the one thing that a couple of trainers have already told me is it's the asthmatic people with asthmatics, they tend to have the biggest problem with these types of conditions, and that's the thing that they're concerned about. Is there's probably a fair amount of kids, regardless of the sport, who deal with asthma and everything, and you really got to look out for those folks when you're dealing with a situation like this.
Yeah, it's been a weird few years. You go back to the time of the pandemic when they pushed the entire season back. Gosh, I remember when they were holding the the spring sports championships in June when it was upper 90s at the state tennis tournament at Albuquerque Academy, and that heat just radiates off those courts. I'm thinking, what a bizarre time.
State track, Will, that burns your feet just standing in it. Just thinking about it made me burn my feet. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, here we are. We're 2 weeks away from the start of the high school football season. I know teams are going to start scrimmaging this coming week. Really, Thursday is a big night for a lot of teams. And you and I have had a chance to see a few teams. St. Mike's is hosting St. Pius, which should actually be a pretty entertaining game because St. Pius made the state championship game in 4A, and St. Mike's, of course, 5 times in a row to the finals. But yeah, I think the team I'm most interested, though, I really want to see Santa Fe High because they're dropping down a classification. And I think this is a chance Santa Fe High can make some noise this year. I think it's just an exciting year. I think we've talked about this, all 4 teams in the city have a shot at making the playoffs. But the one I'm really interested in is seeing what Santa Fe High does.
Yeah, and they'll be down in Bernalillo for their scrimmage on Thursday evening, I think about 5:00. So, they'll get a good test there. Bernalillo's a pretty good team. Coach Holguin was telling me they're big, they're strong, they're going to be physical. So, Santa Fe High should definitely be prepared for their week 1 game against Alamogordo, which will be down in Alamogordo, by the way. So.
Yeah, it'll be nice and warm down there. It stays hot in Alamogordo for a long time. It'll be in the 90s when they play that game. But.
Yeah, and another thing we're going to have to get used to, which I think is just becoming a trend just because of the way the weather is in September, we're going to get a lot of 6:00 games. Capital and Santa Fe High, both of them have switched their start times to 6 p.m., I think in part to try to beat the weather or at least get part of the game in. So that way, when they do get back out on the field after these thunderstorms pass through, they can at least get to halftime or finish the game at a reasonable hour. So all those people that were used to your 7:00 start times, you're going to have to get off of work and go straight to Jaguar Field or Ivanhead in order to get there for the game.
Which is great for us because, with 10 o'clock deadlines on a Friday night. Of course, if you give us till 10 o'clock to file a story, we're still going to take till 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we're still going to take. Yeah.
We just have an extra hour to screw around,
Yeah, we don't need to give away our secrets.
No, that's true. But yeah, it should be look, St. Mike's. We could talk all day about St. Mike's, how they're coming in the season with a 33-game winning streak. It's right now the 3rd longest winning streak in state history. They win twice. They'll own the 2nd longest streak of all time. They're not going to get to the top overall. So I think the overall streak is 70 by Animus.
I thought it was 80 something.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So they're not going to get that far, but it'll be interesting to see.
Come on, man! 5 more years of this, they could do it.
Yeah, running the table through the rest of the 2020s. So that's what they're going to have to do is go undefeated. But look, Robertson. I think the biggest shift coming out of this preseason is Robertson is going with turf, which is just the worst idea ever because Robertson's home field advantage was playing on just a lousy grass field that turned to straight mud for most of the season, and now you're getting rid of that.
I know, man, but I think part of the problem is just the issue with water, and it's just I think the same problem that Santa Fe High had. Capital, obviously, I mean that's the reason why Santa Fe Public Schools made those changes so that way they didn't have to worry about water. But it was the same problem with Robertson. Talking to Lucas Sanchez over the weekend, he mentioned that they struggled just getting their fields watered regularly, and then certain parts of the field would get watered and it'd be green and lush and great. And then you would get to about the 50-yard line, and then it just turned into a mud bog, or it was just playing on a pile of dirt with maybe some shards of glass in it. It wasn't exactly the most the safest place to play football, but man, it was such a great home field advantage for Robertson because you get to play on that field. You kind of know where kind of all the divots are and everything. And
it was disgusting.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, go to those games, you'd be standing in about 4 inches of mud by the end of the game. So, yeah, I got used to that. But didn't you say their first home game is going to be pushed to New Mexico Highlands? Is that right?
Yeah, it is because they had some issues with the middle of the turf. They were supposed to have a larger cardinal logo than it really was. So the company that was doing it decided, well, we'll go ahead and fix that, but it's just going to push your start time back another week or two. So week 1, they'll actually be playing at Highlands when they start the season, and their first actual game they're anticipating will be in, I believe, September 4th. I forget who the opponent is, but Robertson will be playing at home for the first time in September, and it's going to be different. They're going to be on turf, and they're not going to be those dirty Robertson the dirty birds like they have been.
That's too bad, man.
Years. Yeah,
bigger is better though. The bigger logo, the better, I guess, in Robertson. So
I guess so.
The season. We're going to take a break. We're going to come right back with our guest, Dr. Paul Weir. He's the new president at St. Mike's. We could talk sports, his vision for rebuilding the entire school. We're going to do that. So, James, get all your hard questions ready for Paul. We're going to just
wait. I thought this was your area of expertise.
Ask him about the academic curriculum, the whole thing. I want you to dig really deep. We're going to see how far.
This is your alma mater, man. You need to take the front on that.
No one's supposed to know that I went to St. Michael's High School. It's supposed to be an anonymous thing.
I think it's the worst kept secret in the state right now.
Yeah, that's true. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Paul Weir. All right, we're back, and we're joined by a guy that I've known for a while. I've covered him when he was the head basketball coach at New Mexico State, head basketball coach at the University of New Mexico. And then, unfortunately, I never got to run into you at Eastern New Mexico when you were the AD. My son actually played baseball at Eastern New Mexico for a while. So, but Paul Weir, now you're in charge of St. Mike's. You're the head man at St. Mike's. First of all, when are you going to rename the school after something you like? And then what kind of changes you make? And how many, if you fired the entire staff, what have you done to change things up right away?
Coming out swinging, man.
Wow.
We weren't big time enough at Eastern to get Will Weber to cover us. That was that was the reason why you didn't cover us. No, obviously, St. Mike's has an amazing tradition and legacy. Really, since 2008, there's been a lot of pressure on this school with regards to enrollment. It's been a pretty steady decline since 2008, and a lot of different presidents and a lot of different ideas and ways to kind of mitigate that, but nothing's really worked. So our challenge right now is we got to stop the bleeding. We got to get a nice base, a nice foundation, and then build it back up the same way it's kind of unfortunately kind of decreased over the years. Are we ever going to get back to the 800 or 900 kids that used to be walking through the doors? I don't know if we're going to get there, but we're going to do every single thing we can to try. Have a lot of new ideas and initiatives and strategies that we're going to hopefully start to put into place over the course of the next year, and then hopefully start to build it back up. I believe in Catholic education. I grew up in it. I was a part of it. Had as you just mentioned, I had teachers and experience that really formed who I am, and I truly feel like this can be the best school in the state of New Mexico, top to bottom. It isn't just a sports school. It isn't just a school with brand recognition. It's a school that when you walk in the door, you will get the best academic learning experience you can find. So we did implement a new cell phone policy. We did make changes to the dress code. We are going to increase the discipline, the expectations, and the accountability, and hope that not only serves our students, but looks more appealing to parents out there of saying, what, we need more of X or Y in our son or daughter's life, and that school is going to help us get that.
Dr. Weir, I was wondering if all those banners behind you is kind of part of that recruiting ploy, or is it just that you guys ran out of space on the walls for all your state championship banners?
I love the latter. The former is I'm in a cinder block office right now, and I didn't want to have the cinder block look behind me, so I snuck into Dakota's office and figured this would be a much better backdrop, so we can be a little more visually appealing when you think about St. Mike's.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk about boosting enrollment, but St. Mike's is kind of they're like an enigma, because if you're dwindling in enrollment, which you have been, you're essentially a 2A school playing at a 3A level. The success of the athletic teams, you would never have any. If you're just only using that as a gauge, you'd never know that St. Mike's is struggling beyond that. it's really kind of hard to explain how they keep getting good athletes and good teams, but yet the enrollment still keeps dropping. Like you mentioned, stopping the hemorrhaging. How do you do that? What is there? I mean, people have come and tried it before you got there, but what do you do?
Yeah, as you said, we have the market cornered in athletics. If you have a young, talented athlete that you would like to see grow, athletically in their careers, those kids are still coming to St. Mike's. Our brand, the quality of our coaches, our history, even our future. It's a wonderful school to send athletes to. We have to do a better job of the rest. We have more competition now with charter schools and with different programs that have kind of popped up around the state where students don't just automatically go to St. Mike's. There's actually better opportunities elsewhere if you're not an athlete. And we have to do a really good job of improving the other components and facets of our school and building up our theater program and building up music and building up our activities. And then also leaning into our faith, and making people realize that there's more to it than just what goes on the sports field or maybe in the classroom. There also is a journey that everybody goes through about where is their place in the world and what is God to me and what can it be, and kind of doing a little bit more beyond the scope of just a textbook. So really we have to, not only have, but sell to people out there deciding where they want to send their kids to school, a complete full experience. And that was part of the reason that, we are moving away from cell phones this year on campus, is we want, when you come to school here, to just really immerse yourself into the full day, the teachings in the classroom, the teachings in faith, the teachings on the sports field, the activities, etc. And if we can kind of really build that up, I want to unequivocally sit in front of you or anybody else, even my own son. I got 2 years to say, this is the absolute best school you can go to. And there isn't anywhere else even close that you would want to not only send your kid, but you be willing to actually spend some money because you believe in it that much. So that's the goal is again, sports is a huge part of our history. You know me, I'm a sports guy. So I would love to see them continue to grow and succeed. But for our school to kind of, reinvent itself and have kind of a new tier or a new chapter, we have to go beyond that.
You kind of mentioned before about just kind of your background and everything, and having, gone to school at a Catholic school and everything. Now that you have that opportunity to kind of have, I guess, a little bit more influence in curriculum and kind of the direction of the school, how much do you kind of lean on your experiences at, being at a Catholic school for where you're at now in your current situation?
Yeah, it's so lucky. And it really wasn't anything I thought of when I was exploring this opportunity. But when I became the head coach at New Mexico State, we had a goal that we wanted to visit every single high school in the state of New Mexico. So myself and my staff went through every single school in the state of New Mexico, and we split it up. And we covered all of them in that first summer together. So I have already physically been inside of countless high schools in and around the state of New Mexico. How they walk, how they talk, what the vibe's like, what their processes are, who's in charge, what are the students like. And then obviously as a recruiter, I've been in high schools all over the country, and I've been in every premier Catholic school you can think of, from Mater Dei on the West Coast to DeMatha on the East Coast. I've walked in and around them. So I just have these perspectives and these lenses of all these schools, and maybe how they looked when you walked in the door, or what kind of uniforms they were wearing, or what the rules were, or what time practices were, and all these things. So I really didn't think much of that when I was exploring the opportunity. But now that I'm here, it's like, wow, like this is how they did it at Mater Dei, or this is how they did it at La Lumiere, or this is what Hobbs High School did, or this is what Roswell did, or this is what Cruces High does. And all these kind of various areas, and now can bring those into a school that has a phenomenal history and set of traditions. But obviously, we always want to update. We always want to do things a little bit better. And now ask the right questions of, well, how come we don't do it this way? Or, there's a lot of other schools doing it that way. And hopefully kind of moving our school forward. So I think, that career and opportunity of just being around so many high schools and principals, and even recruiting kids from schools and going, wow, like they came from Mater Dei. I love the structure that those kids had throughout their day. And I know they're going to succeed really well. This student came from, this athlete came from school B, and there's nothing going on there. There is no discipline. There is no education. And we have so much more work to do. So, having that lens and those experiences, I hope, is going to help me make St. Mike's a better place to go to school and create a better future.
Yeah, we can get into your past. I mean, certainly your past is really interesting. People, I think anyone who grew up in New Mexico knows what you've done. But you were the head coach at UNM when JB White was recruited. I know you came after JB pretty hard, but the night he was shot and killed, that was I remember I reached out to you that night just to get your reaction. But what do you just carry us through that night, that moment where you found out, and then your trip up to Santa Fe to talk to the family and be around them? What was that like for you?
Yeah. Geez. I remember the first time I saw JB White play, and I remember following him for a full summer and recruiting against really the biggest programs in the country, and developing a relationship with him and his family, and our whole staff did. I mean, he was just such an amazing young man. He had a great smile and a warm personality, and was like, man, you can't think of a better person to want to have a part of your program. And then obviously being in Santa Fe was a school you could come visit after practice, or you could get up to. So I got to know obviously his coaches, his principal, his family, his friends. You know, we recruited him for quite a long period of time. And then when he committed, we were really, really excited. And admittedly, during that process, I'd kind of been around the high school quite a bit, and kind of been around kind of the culture. And we were actually trying to speed up the process of getting him out. We knew that it wasn't the healthiest environment for him specifically. The crowds he was around and the people, the attention he was starting to get, particularly in this community, just didn't seem overly optimistic about his future. Now, it never crossed anybody's mind what inevitably did happen, but there was definitely a path that this kind of northern New Mexico culture and spirit was kind of dragging him into that I didn't feel good about. But nevertheless, we weren't able to get him out soon enough.
Yeah.
That night, obviously, his grandmother called me, and at first I thought it was a butt dial. It was whatever, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And finally, on however many rings, I picked it up. And I mean, just the volume and the emotion and the screaming on the other line, I mean, I'll never forget. So that and the weeks and months ahead were, it was a lot. It was a lot for a lot of people. And JB impacted so many different people in ways. The kids and the youth that he was around, the younger people that looked up to him, the adults that revered him or saw what he was going to be capable of. It was a very serious and life-changing experience for me. So to come back now to Santa Fe and run into Jude and, you know, go to his tournament that she's done and see all the amazing initiatives. I showed up to the St. Mike's boys basketball camp, and I'm taking my kid who's 11 years old, and met him at 4 or 5 and doesn't really remember him, but there's other campers wearing a JB White shirt. And I'm going like, wow, this is unbelievable. All these years later, the legacy and the legend that has kind of grown of him. And I've already told you that anything our school can do or I can do to continue to enhance that would be terrific. We set up a scholarship at UNM in his name when I was there, and really just looking forward to hopefully continuing to live his legacy on as much as we can.
I was actually going to ask you about that, especially with the foundation and stuff. And now that, you're kind of one of the first people actually to kind of help maybe get that ball rolling with the scholarship and everything. And now you kind of have this opportunity to kind of continue that part, especially through her foundation and everything. How much conversations have you had with her, and what's the hope that perhaps you guys can do some things? I mean, I know she's a presence in just about every high school out there and everything, but I'm sure you want that presence at St. Mike's as well.
For sure. We were actually trying to get that big tournament that's kind of run all across the city here. We had an event with the Archdiocese already booked for that weekend. But I would love to open up our doors and our facilities to her and just the kids in the community. Right now, she's kind of working on another initiative of kind of a youth basketball league that I said, hey, forget St. Mike's. I just want to help. So if there's an area where St. Mike's can be of value with facilities or access to certain populations or potentially donors, that's great. But if you just need kind of people on the ground or boots on the ground or a basketball coach or anything, I want to be able to open myself up. So to watch what it's grown to, I obviously haven't been in Santa Fe since I left Albuquerque, but to come back and see kind of the brand and what she's created, what a tribute to her and just her passion and commitment to just her love for JB. And any way I can support that, obviously would love to do.
Now, I do have a Paul Weir story that I like, that I always tell people. And it's one of the weirdest days I've ever had as a journalist. Was January 6th during the stuff at the nation's capital. I was driving to Lubbock for your game that night. Got to Lubbock. I'm the only media member there. Watched the game. Of course, it was just a terrible game. It was just a tough season for you. You guys are sequestered. It's just it was rough. Anyway, so we go through all the January 6th stuff and listen to it on satellite radio. But after the game, you and I weren't allowed to talk face to face. I remember you went into one of the coach's offices, and I'm on the other side. That your SID wouldn't let me talk to you face to face, code restrictions. So we're doing a Zoom call on the opposite side of a glass window, and there was like a second and a half delay between what you were saying on my computer and what I could see coming out. It was just one of the most surreal things ever. And it was like high school gym. There's no one there, and everyone has to keep a million miles apart. And during the day, they're using that gym as a COVID testing site. It was just one of the most. And then, of course, it's January 6th. So there's just how rough was that season? I know from a media standpoint, it was a pain in the neck, but how rough was it for you?
Yeah. In all honesty, I still haven't even totally unpacked that year. I took like notes on things over the course of the year, kind of like journaled some things, in different periods, and I still haven't gone back to read them. It was a lot. I don't know if I'm ever going to have the time and really the emotional capacity to unwrap all of that. There were so many things that went on that will never be shared publicly that were just, it was traumatic. I can't say anything less than that. I mean, anyone that was in that group that experienced what we experienced will ever forget some of the things that transpired. It was powerful in a lot of ways. There are obviously memories and things that I can kind of draw on, but to really go back and unpack that properly and move forward from it, I honestly have not done. I've kind of just said, you know what, let's leave that. Let's move forward. Let's move on. Let's kind of move into whatever my next chapters of life are. But that year in particular was quite unique.
Yeah, between you and Danny Gonzalez, you could write a book or a Netflix documentary.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you too about when you interviewed here for the president's job and everything. One of the last things you did was you took in a basketball game, and it just so happened to be the District 2 AAA championship between Indian School and St. Mike's. I mean, and maybe one of the best games I've seen in a really long time. But I mean, here's your opportunity to kind of take in what high school basketball is like. Not that you didn't know because of your experience here at NMSU and UNM, but when you see it up to face to face like that, and you see the energy that crowd had from both sides. I mean, and you're in this interview process. What did that do for you as far as just like, did that kind of cement anything, like any doubts that you might have had? Like, no, this is a great place to be.
Yeah, I would say the benefit of living in Las Cruces and then Albuquerque, basketball in this state, nothing compares to it. It just doesn't. Yeah. Whether you're on a reservation, in a high school, the Lobos, the Aggies, whoever it happens to be, it's just a special sport to the state of New Mexico. Always has been, and I'm assuming will be for quite a long time. So I knew going into it that it was going to be a fun game. It happened to be obviously the day I was there, for my interview. I left a little early. A lot of people think it's because Will was trying to corner me. But I was more frustrated that Santa Fe Indian School was playing harder than us. And when I was a coach with the Lobos and our team wasn't playing very hard, I just say, hey, we're practicing tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. When you're sitting there in the stands and you can't actually do anything about it, and you're watching a team that you kind of are starting to care about, and you're watching this other team play harder than us, it's like, I can't watch this anymore. I'm going to do something that somebody might regret. So I kind of said, it's best for me to leave, and I hope we win the game on the back end. But look, the sports here, as Will kind of mentioned earlier, the traditions here, I'm really excited to learn more about some of these other sports that we're just so great at. Our girls soccer team won a state championship last year. Our track team obviously has a great history, and they've won state championships. Our baseball team got to the state championship last year. I'm probably missing some other sports that have gotten to one or gone to one. Our volleyball program here is just outstanding. So I'm really excited about being able to learn from these coaches, watch what they do for sports, and hopefully allow them to continue to grow and be the best version of themselves. But like I said, when it comes to basketball, there's nothing like a big basketball game in the state of New Mexico. It could be a high school game, it could be a college game. It's special and exciting to still be a part of that in a different way, at a different level, but the same intensity and the same emotions.
Yeah, I'm sure when you left Toronto to start your coaching career, probably the last place you thought you'd wind up was New Mexico. You get here, you're an assistant coach with the Aggies forever. You coached one of the best basketball players the state has ever seen with Pascal Siakam. But you also met your wife here. You started a family here. You've developed, you got 3 master's degree and a PhD. A PhD, which interestingly enough, was from New Mexico State while you're coaching at UNM, which is really just a bizarre thing. But just talk about the evolution that you've taken, the path you've followed since coming to New Mexico. It felt like a million years ago.
Yeah, it really has become home. When I born and raised in Toronto, Canada, and I left at 24, and I'm 47 now. So the next closest amount of time I've spent anywhere has been New Mexico. The 10 years in Las Cruces, the 4 years in Albuquerque, and then the 3 years out in Clovis on the eastern part of the state. So 17 years since has been here. And when you're spending them as a young adult into, what I am now, like an older adult, those really are formative years. You're meeting your wife, you're having children, you're accomplishing degrees, and it really does feel like home. Both of my parents have actually passed in the past few years, so it really isn't a ton back at home from back in Toronto as a home for me right now either. So this really is it, and I love it here. I really do, and I'm so fortunate to have had such a great amount of time in the southern part of the state and learning that culture and those people and the experiences that I had, not only academically but professionally, and then obviously in my personal life. And then the same thing in Albuquerque, going to the eastern part of the state, which is kind of like a whole new state, learning what they're about. And then now kind of culminating and coming to the magical city of Santa Fe, the capital, and just having those experiences and meeting all those people. There's so many people I've met since I've got here that I learned or met from those other destinations along the way. And I had no idea they went to St. Mike's, or they knew someone that went to St. Mike's or whatever. It's like, wow, like you did. And so just to kind of bring all that together has been really fun for me, for my family. And then now hopefully to watch my kids grow up in it and them kind of have their own experience as part of it is really, really fun and exciting for me.
One thing I was kind of curious about, just to kind of bring up to something that's a little bit current, is the fires. And it was something Will and I talked a little bit about in our first segment, and that is just the air quality right now. I know that's kind of suddenly become an issue just because of how the smoke from the fires is kind of moving about. And I know Santa Fe has been getting hit really hard the last couple of days. How much are you guys monitoring that right now? And, is there kind of a point where you're like, okay, we got to bring kids inside, or we can't even have practice, just because of how poor the quality is?
Yeah, great question. It's something that I'm starting to learn about really in the last 12 hours. I think yesterday it kind of started, and it was like, okay, and I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a scientist or know a ton about forest and smoke. But it was like, maybe it'll be gone by tomorrow. But obviously I walked my kids to school this morning. I'm walking around out here right now. It's different. So today we kind of started the questions. We're not actually in school yet, so our classes don't start till Friday. So I think between now and Friday, we'll kind of work on a little bit of a game plan and what that might look like.
Now, is there any truth to the rumor that your grass field is in danger? Maybe it's going to get replaced by carpet. Are you actually going to turf the field?
Look at you asking the tough ones, man.
Yeah. He stole the one I was try to finish up with, but no, let's go.
Yeah, we can't. That's St. Mike's big home field advantage too, is the 4-inch grass that Joey likes.
I like that. Well, I would say part of not only necessarily forest fires, football is a little bit a part of this. We need a sustainable school. So we want a school that's going to be sustainable for the next 160 years. It's my responsibility to make sure that happens. So when I'm looking at a variety of things, the sustainability of our water bill, our water access, what that looks like over the next 20 or 30 years in Santa Fe, I want to make sure St. Mike's is positioned to be a school that's going to be here for the long run. And I don't want to run into a situation where something comes in at some point and now all of a sudden Santa Fe is going under a serious water restriction and we have to make some adaptations to that on our back foot. I'd rather be we're fixing the roof when when the sun is shining, so to speak. Yeah. And that's really all I'm doing right now is finding a way to make our school sustainable for the next 160 years. That includes grass, that includes trees, that includes gravel and concrete and all the other things that go into either creating or developing forest fires or just having a school that in the long run can sustain itself. So everything's on the table. Will, you know me from coaching the Lobos. There's no idea that's a bad idea. I love outside the box thinking. I do different things. I want to follow the data to make sure we make a right decision. But if there's an idea out there, I want to talk about it. I want to throw it out there and see if it's a way that it can make us better. We are not doing that anytime soon, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that's a conversation that we've had. What does that look like? What does it cost? How does that position us? And then as those conversations keep going, we just want to put really smart people in a room and hopefully make the right decision.
Well, we'll ask one half of the equation. I'll ask the other half. What about lights?
Ooh, good question. Something that's been brought up. I don't think as far as my list of what's the most important thing to do today, and that goes down, it's on that legal pad. It's just about 3 pages in. So I haven't quite got there to really understanding totally if we were to add lights, what's the cost benefit of that? Is it a net win, a net loss? Who's that going to impact? And I haven't quite got there yet. We're doing that with a lot of other things, but eventually that is definitely on the list and something that's been brought up.
And we're just, James and I can't wait for basketball season to see if you go to games and be like, yeah, Dakota, that's not how I would have run that play. I don't know, man. I think his own defense would have worked.
I think the parents are already doing that enough. So I'm going to try and remove a little bit from that. And if I do, it'll be coffee the next morning. I'm going to try and do my best to stay out of it. But I do get emotional. So we'll see. No guarantees.
But look, Dr. Paul Weir, thanks for joining us. I know St. Mike's got the splash hire that they needed. And I know your past. I've known you for a while, so I think St. Mike's is in good hands. Definitely a bright future for the school. And there's work to be done. And there's already cosmetic changes taking place on campus, too. James and I have both seen it since we've been there.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to seeing what the future holds for that school. And then, of course, my wife is a Santa Fe Prep graduate, so she's kind of rooting against you guys a little bit. But
I'll ask you a question. So we've been around for 160 years. We have the color blue. At some point along the way, Santa Fe Prep decides they're going to start a school. Yeah. Why would they do blue too? Are they trying to be us, or are they like what was the thought there?
I don't know.
All I'm going to say is weak move. Move. Come on.
And it was the wrong blue too, man. That navy blue. Come on.
Yeah. Oh man.
The first
that's one thing I know about Santa Fe Prep so far. I'm sure it's a great school and they send kids to the Ivy Leagues and everything else. But from just a color standpoint, it's like, come on, guys. Like you can't want to BS that bad. Try and come up with a new one. I'll fund it if they want to find a new color and a new everything. We can get them on a different track. Stop trying to.
I like it. Look at that mortar shells heading for Museum Hill right now. I like it.
Wow! Here we go.
That's good. Well, Paul, thanks for joining us. Really looking forward to seeing you out there doing your thing. And then again, just if you have any bright ideas, reach out to James because I never answer my phone. So just do that.
No, honestly, we're really appreciative of you guys. It's a beautiful, wonderful community. Santa Fe is awesome. It's challenging at times. There's a lot of different things moving and happening at once. We're just trying to find our best place in that. So any support from you or anybody else, we'd love to have. And any criticisms or feedback or thoughts you guys ever have, I have very, very thick skin. So please pass them along. We always want to be the best version of ourselves. And I'm excited about this. I think college athletics, when I got into it, it was really about teaching. That's what a lot of coaches were. You taught, you grew up in that. And I think we all know college athletics is not that anymore. So, this is a much better runway and pathway for me to be around teachers and teaching kids and developing young people to be the best version of themselves. And I'm excited to do that here at St. Mike's. So hopefully it'll be fun.
Cool. All right, guys, well, that'll wrap it up. We're going to take a quick break. James and I'll come back and wrap it up right after this. But again, Paul, thanks for joining us. And
yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, that was our guest, Dr. Paul Weir, the new president at St. Mike's. We've been trying to get him on here for a while. I know he's super busy. And if you follow social media, St. Mike's has gotten a lot more active on social media, posting stuff about orientation, which is going on right now. So I appreciate him coming on. I did have a Paul Weir story I wanted to share, and I just couldn't get around to it. It didn't come up organically. But when they played BYU in an exhibition game in the pit one year, my wife, it's an exhibition, so everyone's it's a dress rehearsal for the year. I took my wife into the media room. She was standing in the back. And as Paul's press conference was going on, Dave Rose, who was coaching BYU at the time, came in that back entrance, and he saw my wife with my daughter standing back there and said, "You must be Paul Weir's wife." What? So there was that. It didn't start off well. Like, but all right, I get it. You mistook her. She's wearing a woman in the media room, so I get it. But anyway, so there's that. Next time I'll have to mention that to him. But
that's slightly sexist that he just assumed that the pretty girl in the room was Paul Weir's and not.
Well, she's the only woman in there too, so there was that. And also when he right at the end when he mentioned if you have anything basically criticisms, I was going to look right at you. It's like, oh, I can't wait for your next column. You're just going to.
I thought I was going to tell him. I was just like, you want to know our criticisms? Just read the paper tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, like man, I'm cracking my knuckles. We're going to do this.
Yeah. We don't do phone calls here. We do long form columns.
That's right. Yeah. So of course it's another week of this podcast, and I'm sure everyone's tuned out by now. But I forgot to mention the newsletter. The newsletter. If you go into SantaFeNewMexican.com, go into the newsletter section, subscribe to sports. I will sit down and pen a brand new one today, and I'll mention that Paul Weir's on our podcast. I'll do that. But a very busy time for us. We're ratcheting up. Yesterday was the first day of soccer, volleyball, and cross country practice. So right now, all the fall sports are in full throttle. That includes college stuff. UNM, New Mexico State, Eastern New Mexico, Highlands. They're all neck deep in preseason practice for football. So we're right around the corner. Any story suggestions, just reach out to us at sports@sfnewmexican.com. We're more than happy to take any suggestions you might have. And, of course, call James for any ideas. So, James, and we will see you next week.